Are your ulcerative colitis symptoms proving difficult to manage? Tremfya guselkumab can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. At 1 year, many patients taking Tremfya achieved clinical remission, and some patients also achieved endoscopic remission. Individual results may vary. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor if Tremfya can help you manage the cycle of UC symptoms. Call 1-800-526-7736 to learn more or visit tremfyaradio.com.
Qualifying session. My word, Formula One is well and truly back. In qualifying one, we saw P1 to P14 separated by just 5/10 of a second. And that to me, Kunal, is just brilliant. Like, do you remember the dark days when the difference between P1 and P2 often used to be 3/10, and then there was another 4 or 5 tenths between P3 and P4, and then everything was just a mess. And we used to wonder, man, is it going to be this boring during the race? And here we are today with this close of a grid. And when the sandbags actually were dropped, McLaren ended up being the fastest ones.
Those sandbags must have been heavy. Why don't we just decode it all in our reactions after qualifying in the next live stream? Because we know the system is also working. So, yet another upgrade for 2025. That's fired for the Inside Line F1 team as well.
We didn't have this for Bahrain, but we have this for Australia. So quite like Sauber in what they've done, because even their upgrade has led to a big upgrade in results. Let's put it that way. Gabriel Bortoleto. 1 second. I think a bigger story than Lando Norris taking pole and Oscar second and Max third and Ferrari 7 and 8. It's that a B tier rookie, Kunal, has taken Sauber to Q3, has beaten a teammate who's been in Formula One for over 10 years, and has made a crazy save in a Q2 lap, all while being a B rate rookie. What does a B rate rookie even mean anymore? I want to be a B rate rookie if that means being that good in a Formula One car for the first time.
Well, you're clearly an A grade podcaster and broadcaster now, given that you're going to be the voice of the Hindi broadcast tomorrow on Fan Code. But I'm actually waiting to hear if this is now the live stream, or is this the test live stream before the live stream?
We are live. No, we are indeed live, folks. And if you are just joining us, welcome to our qualifying review on the Inside Line F1 podcast. We're missing F1 Stats Guru. He's out for a bit, but we'll get him tomorrow for the post-race show as well. No, we are properly live. And yes, we're still sort of making our last-minute tweaks and adjustments, quite like Haas. But we're not like Haas. We're faster than Haas. And we can actually have two hosts present and actually going into the second part of this live stream, not just languishing at the very bottom like them.
I didn't quite catch that. But either way, the good thing about qualifying was that it proves that 2025 is for real. The whole jitters that is it going to be 2024 continuation or is one team going to run away with it, etc. Seems like McLaren have run away with it in qualifying, but we need a few races to know if it was track dependent, temperature dependent, a mix of all of that. Because yes, when they did take the sandbags off, that 3/10 of a gap was incredible to watch.
Yeah, I mean, Lando Norris pulled it out. And the fascinating thing about that is that McLaren were the only one of the top teams not to have a banker lap. Like, both of them had a really terrible one. And I, at the moment, was just thinking, well, that's going to put them under pressure. Like, Lando Norris, a driver who we know has been called out for not being the toughest in these pressure moments, actually came up with a stunner of a lap. And the way he delivered that. And by the way, that means that Lando Norris now is the new qualifying track. Let me articulate this correctly. He's now the fastest man in Melbourne because he's just gone out there and smashed the track lap record. Not the race lap record, that's a different thing. But the track lap record now belongs to Lando Norris, a 1 minute 15 flat. Last year, Max Verstappen did that, and it was a 1 minute 15.9. So the Formula One cars have actually gotten 9/10 faster. And yes, I know a lot of it is down to weather conditions and tires and also the track temperature and how much rubber has been put down. So many variables, but still 9/10 faster than last year. And Lando delivered on the one lap that he had in Q3. I think he's ready, Kunal. I think this is a different version of Lando that we're seeing here.
And if this is the version of Lando we see tomorrow. That's going to be the main thing. But he clinched pole position when it mattered, 3 tenths ahead, narrowly just ahead of Oscar Piastri. I think for McLaren, 1-2 with the drivers that they had, with the gaps that they had to the field and the gaps between the drivers, pretty fantastic. But my mind is actually going back to the early minutes of Q3. What happens when a season is just this so close? And we saw what happens. Both the McLaren drivers really needing to push, making mistakes, having track limits, having all those issues, and they just couldn't nail the lap time. They couldn't put a banker lap, as we call it. We saw George Russell quickest. Before that, we saw Charles Leclerc quickest. Then we saw Max Verstappen go quickest. So clearly, at least 3 or 4 teams that we were hoping in the fight were in the fight.
Yeah, they were in the fight. They were properly in the fight. And that was amazing. Verstappen also getting so close on multiple occasions. Unfortunately, the last lap just didn't quite do it for him. And I think that's a very good segue to get into Ferrari, isn't it, Kunal? Because
Not yet. No,
not
not yet.
yet.
We
No.
we have to remember Oscar Piastri's home race, the cheers that he got every time he started or ended a lap. I mean, yes, Formula One has put microphones in the stands for a long time. We remember that guy screaming "Neom" when the Austrian race used to happen. But he was getting those cheers, and Oscar Piastri now has, I think, 7 front row starts without actually having a pole position. Okay, and I love the fact that Piastri was just so calm, even in the post-race press conference. Both the drivers were being asked, "Is it time for papaya rules?" and so on, and they said, "We just have to keep it clean. We both want to win individually, but we need to win for the team as well." But they did confirm one of the most critical things that we hope is true for the entire season is that they will be allowed to race Sommel, because to me, that is very crucial. If McLaren keep having this sort of a gap, we don't want them to run away with it, just, minding manners on track. We want the elbows out right from the start, from
Yeah.
the opening lap itself.
We do, and that has finally been confirmed by McLaren, which is a great thing. And I think tomorrow will be such an important day, just not just for this season, but also for the direction of McLaren and how they go. Because tomorrow, Oscar and Lando have a chance to draw first blood. As of right now, there's no number one. Last year, Lando was ahead in terms of the point standings. Of course, there was a contribution from Oscar towards that, but there is no definitive number one driver yet. And a win tomorrow will really go a long way in cementing your status as the number one in your team. Because ultimately, McLaren would like to have us believe that both of them are equal. There's no difference between them. They're on the same contract. They're on the same terms, whatever it might be. But there is always a number one, right? And that opportunity to get first blood is so important, because we've seen this, right? When we come to race 5, race 6, race 7, by that time, the team will favor the driver who's ahead in the championship. Although McLaren would like us to believe that they are equal, they will have to pick either one of the two. And if Oscar Piastri or Lando Norris is 20, 30 points, or even hell, I'd say 15 points ahead of the other one, we know which direction they have to go towards. So it's a big day. It's a big day. From day one, there cannot be any bit of slacking for either of these drivers. So I think tomorrow is going to be kick-ass. I just wonder how aggressively they'll fight each other, Kunal.
Very aggressive, just for exactly what you said. They want supremacy. They will want to show to the team that they both have the same pace in qualifying. Norris continues to edge PS3 by half a tenth, 1/10 here and there. And mind you, that's a beautiful gap to have,
Yeah.
because it's just about how much risk you take in your final laps in Q3. That's what it's all about. And both the drivers in McLaren clearly took a lot more risk, as we remember in the first runs of Q3. But tomorrow's also mostly going to be a wet day at in Melbourne. For the first time since 2010,
Yes.
there could be a wet race. It's a semi-permanent street circuit. Let's remember, for the first time since 2012, a McLaren is on pole. For the first time also since 2012, I'll be hoping that a McLaren is on the top step of the podium. I'm happy to not choose which McLaren it will be. But one of the things that both the McLaren drivers said, which I think echoes a lot of fan sentiment post qualifying, was that they expected the Ferraris to be quicker. They expected Ferraris to be a bigger challenge. That's what Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris said. And I guess pretty much every fan that was hoping to see Ferrari there would have felt the same way. I was noting some post qualifying reactions. Charles Leclerc said that they were hoping for more after they saw the pace on Friday, which was yesterday. And he just said that there was no pace in the car, which is why his second run in Q3, he was pushing too much. The lap got messy and he had to abort. So, of course, Leclerc is not pleased with where he landed up. But Lewis
Hmm.
Hamilton, on the other side, was extremely pleased because if you remember, in the preview episode, we said he needs to be just therein or thereabouts uh, from Charles Leclerc's position. Guess where Lewis Hamilton is? Lewis Hamilton is 2/10 of Leclerc, which is damn good for his
Yeah.
first qualifying session in the Ferrari. And he actually said that. He said it was cool. I had a little spin. I was enjoying the curbs, throwing the car there. I did not expect us to be as far off, but I was that close to Charles in my first qualifying session. And he actually emphasized that he's still learning this car. It doesn't feel natural to him. So I think to be 2/10 off, Somal, what are your takes?
Yeah, I think it's good. I think we said in the preview that he needs to be somewhere between 3 to 4 tenths for this to be counted as a success. Anything lower than that, and suddenly the alarm bells are ringing. So 2 tenths is good, and especially when you consider the differences in their driving style. Again, F1 TV did a lovely piece this morning analyzing the fastest laps of Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton in FP3, and they noticed something very interesting. Hamilton, being the late breaker that he is braking slightly later than Leclerc. And as a result, the car is sort of dipping lower on the nose because, of course, the car rolls over the chassis, less than a road car. Of course, it's a Formula One car, but still, it marginally does. And the steering corrections that Lewis Hamilton has to make as a result of that are very smooth, but still rough enough for him to lose roughly a tenth or half a tenth or something around those lines at every single corner. So, unlike last year, when the telemetry was showing that George Russell was beating Lewis at certain corners, and that's how he's able to get an edge up on Lewis. Here it seems to be a more smooth trend, with Lewis just marginally slower everywhere, which means he just needs to get comfortable, and that's a good thing, right, Kunal? Because once he gets used to that style, and once he's able to sort of get the most out of that Ferrari, we know for a fact that he's Lewis Hamilton, and he has, let's say, he's the only driver who can get a 101 card if a Formula One card game ever was invented. So I wouldn't shy away from putting him right up there in terms of getting a race win by race 4 or race 5. But this qualifying gap is insane. Like, just put it into context. Ferrari are 9 tenths of a second away from McLaren in qualifying. And sure, they might be amazing in terms of race pace. Hell, they might be faster. But how many cars are between Ferrari and the McLarens? It's unbelievable, and they've also got slower machine. I mean, theoretically slower machines like Alex Albon in the Williams, or a phenomenal performance from Yuki Tsunoda in the Visa Cash App Racing Bulls car. And they are not pushovers. You have to pass them to get towards the podium. So it's a tough place to be for Ferrari.
I think it's a tough place from a race point of view, from a strategy point of view, from overtaking as well. But if there's any silver lining in the dark cloud that came up, even just at the start of Q3, but figuratively for Ferrari, I think it was Lewis Hamilton's performance. He didn't get knocked out in any of the earlier qualifying sessions, which is possible, and you wouldn't blame him for it. Much like you probably wouldn't blame, Liam Lawson for it. But either way, I think Ferrari, they would be chuffed by Hamilton's performance. That gap could be down to just the car not having pace, which is possible. Another
Mm.
preseason testing myth. That will Ferrari, the mystique that is Ferrari finally there for them to be a second off. I really hope it's just track characteristics, or that's also not true because this track is traditionally suited Ferrari as well. So unless it was just the temperature, because they did struggle from a lot of tire overheating, especially what was evident through the qualifying session as well. But yes, L Vlad is saying those McLarens looking scary again this year. Yes, let's see how they
Yeah.
go. I must say, Max Verstappen pulling that lap again is that joker that Helmut Marko was talking of. Max Verstappen, he's off the front row in Melbourne for the first time since 2019. He's only
Oof.
P3, but him being there will still keep McLaren on their toes. I think that's pretty fantastic. But we have to quick word to Liam Lawson. I think he had one Q1 knockout last year in 6 races with Racing Bulls. Okay.
Hmm.
But he's in the Perez car. Perez had 6 Q1 knockouts last year. And Liam has already had his first strike. And I think more than anything, he would just be bummed that he didn't have a clean run in Q1, because that's
Yeah.
what he went through was not representative of his time or the time that he could put in that car. But just having a clean run would have been so good. But Liam out, Kimi Antonelli out as well. Mercedes was quick to
Yeah.
say there was a bib damage on Antonelli's car. That's what cost him performance. That's what cost him pace. It was so quick in putting that statement out.
Exactly. They were so quick. Like I think immediately after that lap ended, I saw that I saw that Mercedes were just sort of trying to defend Kimi Antonelli, and it felt like a, how do I put it? It felt like they were trying to protect him a bit too much. Like, wait for it. Wait for the media sessions. Wait for him to come out and say that I had bib damage. Wait for the session to get over, for the dust to settle down, people to look at the timing and go like, Kimi's out there. Oh, interesting. What just happened there? It's like they're trying to wrap a blanket over him very, very aggressively. I don't know. It it almost feels like propaganda, Kunal. Like, eh, it's, I
Although,
find it
although
fascinating.
Kimi Antonelli was honest in his post race session, he said the medium to soft switch is what sort of got him out, so to say, because the Mercedes cars did run medium as well in Q1. Different tire strategies from most of the top 4 teams, but it could have been that as well, that he's just needing more time to prepare. It just goes to show you can have 15,000 plus kilometers of testing in TPCs and private testing and whatever. But when it comes to race time, when it comes to qualifying time, you need to know how to deal with the other 19 drivers on track as well. El Vlad, one more question. What do we think of the Williams dynamic for the rest of the season? Alexander Albon, an applause for him.
Yeah,
He he
fair
he
play.
did 2 things. First is he nailed it when it mattered. Okay, and I think that is always the most important thing. Then the second, which is that he outqualified Carlos Sainz.
Yeah,
Okay, which is fantastic. Albon, I'm just reading the gaps here, was 600ths of Yuki Tsunoda, another mega qualifying performance. But sticking to Albon, I think him putting Williams there, Williams has definitely made that step that we were all wondering. Will they be where Alpine is? Will they be where where Aston Martin is? I think pretty much the 4th fastest car on the grid, right? Williams.
yeah,
And Carlos Sainz, again, was very honest. I haven't done qualifying sessions in this car. I didn't know how to extract more pace. I'm still learning on the soft tire in this car. And he said, I'm hoping I just need more qualifying sessions. Lost tire on the soft tire to find time. That's what Carlos Sainz said. Samuel, what are your thoughts with Carlos Sainz's performance? He put it in Q3. Williams
yeah.
were, I think, 1 out of 3 teams that put both cars in Q3. I think that's fantastic,
Oh yeah, only 1 out of 3. Yeah, not bad. That's a fun way to look at it.
because
And
McLaren was the other and
McLaren was the
Ferrari
other,
was the other.
Ferrari. Yeah, correct. Red Bull didn't. Alpha Tauri, this is Toro Rosso. Call it what you want. Yeah,
Yeah.
we carved it, and yeah, neither did the others. But
Yeah. And
you
and
know,
still on Williams, I think this is their best start since 2016. And for the first time in 20 years that both Williams cars were in Q3 in Melbourne.
yeah, and first time since Baku 2024 also that they got both their cars into Q3. And this just goes to show the importance of having good drivers, because that Williams car as a car might be equal to the Alpine, or might be equal to, let's say, the other cars in that group, like the Visa Cash App Racing Bulls. But importantly, they have 2 incredible drivers who are able to get the most out of it. And looking at the grid, looking at how close Formula One is this year, I think that is the most important thing, because if in Q1 we're having P1 to P14 separated by 5 tenths, where are those 5 tenths coming from? I mean, a lot of it is down to the driver and what they're able to extract from it, which is something we've been dying for years. Because I remember the dark ages, 2017, 2018, 19, those terrible years when the gap between the midfield teams itself was a couple of tenths in terms of the car, and then even more so between the drivers. And then you were just like, dude, is there going to be ever any change in this whole pack? Now it's this much better, and the scrutiny on each driver is going to be much, much higher. Sanjay, is that my dad sending a? No, that's not my dad. But yeah,
It's
he's
a
got a
very
question.
common name from India, but even I first thought, is that your dad? But great
Exactly.
question. Who do you think had a worse weekend? Behrman's mechanics, Antonelli's confidence, or Liam Lawson's will to live? Wow. If there's
Uh,
any Formula One team I want to crash a car with multiple times through a race weekend, it would first be Haas, because they know how to build a car after Mazepin, Schumacher. They know how to rebuild it really quickly. And then the second would be Williams. But then I wouldn't know if I would have the spares each race
exactly.
weekend to have multiple rebuilds. But Behrman, very surprising. I actually thought he would be the strongest of all the rookies, but to crash in FP sessions and then have gearbox issues in qualifying, he's going to start last. Well,
You
I think
deserved it. I mean,
yeah,
you deserve what you do. What I mean, you deserve every bit of what you get from that, right? Because he made those errors. And again, I'm not a racing driver. I don't think you're as good as a racing driver as well, Kunal, in comparison to all the Formula One drivers. But we can still make an observation
we
that
won't
it
know
seemed a
till you
little
put me in a car, Samuel. We won't know till you put me in a
fair,
car and you
fair,
give me 15,000 kilometers of private testing.
fair. We should get an Indian team back on the grid to do that.
No,
But
I don't care about the nationality of the team or the engine or who's designed it. I'll just sit and drive it.
but to that point, right? It seemed a little naive for him to push that hard that quickly. Like the FP3 crash that came in, I think 5 minutes into the first session. That's when most people are doing their installation laps, and so to bin it and to ruin all of your Saturday because of that, I think it's a little. What's the right word to say here? It's a little bit of the rookie effect. Let's put it that way. I think that will come with time. And as for Liam Lawson, I mean, let the guy breathe, isn't it, Kunal? Because he missed FP3 through no fault of his own. He's the only driver not to have raced in Melbourne. And I don't think Red Bull did a lot of quali sims in Bahrain also. So for Liam Lawson to get P18, given how close the grid was, let me just pull up the numbers. I don't think he was that bad. He had a 1 minute 17.094. Again, not a very good lap at the end, but that's just because things were just not ready with that machine. I don't think he had enough time.
Yeah, and he said he made silly mistakes trying to extract performance. And he actually said, I need rain to move forward. Because, the
Yeah.
racing bulls, Feyanshu has nicely pointed out, Isaac Harjar,
Yeah.
P11, pretty impressive. Absolutely. For him to be there, not have those radio antics. Not that I think there were some issues with broadcast where radios were not broadcast as much. But Isaac
Luckily.
Harjar, no, I would have loved to see it. All the it's no fun watching Formula One without all the radios from 20 drivers actually throwing themselves in. But Isaac Hadjar, very good. George Russell as well. Nobody would have felt that the Mercedes would have been, only six hundredths off Max Verstappen, which I think again was pretty fantastic because Mercedes being there, Russell versus Verstappen, we know what happens when we see that. At least there's a fight in the media pen, if not on the racetrack. And Pierre Gasly, he was
Hmm.
7 thousandths off the Ferrari. So I get a feeling Ferrari was just out of place, just as Antonelli and Kimi Antonelli and Liam Lawson were out of place. So technically, there were 4 spots up for Q4. And I see Albon made it,
Yeah.
Sunoda made it, Gasly made it, Sainz made it. Pretty much all the usual suspects. I would have hoped to see Hulkenberg make it, but clearly not in that Sauber. But Samuel, I think we're being disrespectful, not hyping up Gabriel Bortoleto again
Yeah.
and even more because we've spoken about every other rookie, but Bortoleto for him to pull that lap on Nico Hulkenberg was pretty encouraging. Nico actually said in his final lap, he was still settling in. He didn't find the sweet spot, and he explained it so well that on my final lap, I had traffic in sector 1, and that just put him off for the entire lap. But guess what? That's just how it goes.
Yeah.
History will remember that Gabriel Bortoleto outqualified the single lap specialist Nico Hulkenberg, put it in Q2 in a Sauber.
Yeah. And that's the performance of a B rate rookie. And I'm going to say this again. If a B rate rookie means that you outqualify a teammate who's been in Formula One for over a decade and get a Sauber, yes, a Sauber up into Q2, then I want to be a B rate rookie too. It's perfect. I would love to be a B rate rookie. Maybe B stands for the boss. I don't know. Maybe that's what Helmut Marko was referring to. We will see. But more comments coming in. Firstly, thank you, Max. It's very kind of you to say that in the comments that we should hit the like button. You should hit the like button, folks, if you enjoyed this. And please share it with more of your friends and family members or colleagues or whatever, or any sort of people who would love to talk about Formula One after an incredible qualifying session. And Max is also pointing out something very interesting that, yeah, Doohan did very good too. Let's take a second to talk about Jack Doohan. And again, we're not going in any order. We can still jump back and forth on drivers. So your wish is our command. Whatever you want us to talk about is what we will talk about because we are live. But Jack Doohan, Kunal, in the first qualifying session, let me just pull up my notes. I think he was just a couple of hundredths, I think 1.5 hundredth away from Pierre Gasly in Q1. And then in second qualifying got impeded by a yellow flag, which came out when Lewis Hamilton actually spun out. Otherwise, I'm not sure where he would have been, but there's a decent chance he would have been closer to Pierre Gasly. And Alpine are a team with 4 reserve drivers, yet they have full confidence in Jack Doohan. And I think that pressure of having 4 other people waiting in line for your seat has really pushed him to do well, because if that's a first qualifying session that you have after all the noise about you losing your seat, fair play, Jack Doohan. You are one tough man, sir.
Yeah, and I think Jack Doohan mainly got caught out by that spin. Otherwise, I would have loved to see how much closer, and he would have been towards the top 10, or even if P11. Like we said, P11 is also very, very prestigious, because when I read the gaps, Isaac Hadjar 600ths of P10, Alonso 2/10ths of Hadjar, Lance Stroll 300ths of Fernando Alonso. That's pretty good by Lance Stroll, I would say. But Alonso also had some car damage that he was carrying, as Aston Martin said post qualifying. But Jack Doohan was almost 4/10ths of Lance Stroll. So how much of that yellow flag cost him in terms of time, and hence how much did it cost him in terms of being closer to the top 10? We won't know. But I think all in all, pretty good debut for Jack Doohan as well. And then Sanjay says, rain will create more chaos at the front, or will it just allow Max to do Verstappen things? We'd love to see that. The rain master, Max Verstappen, pulling it out in the front. But I fear for the guys at the back, because, Melbourne is, again, a narrow circuit, as we know. Nico Hulkenberg said, if it is rain, visibility is going to be one of those challenges that they will face. But I guess the ones racing at the back, which is what Nico Hulkenberg's done actually for a lot of seasons, are going to be used to it. Or at least with the rookies, we'll see where they go. But yeah, interesting questions and conversations.
Yeah, and on that, Melbourne is a street circuit. Like, these roads are literally being used to drive normal cars every other day. Sure, they clean them up properly, and yes, the surface is very much built for Formula One, but it gets very dirty and very greasy very fast. Like in Formula 2 today, we had a couple of drivers at the S section after the Lakeside Drive just actually bin it because they put their foot down on the dirty part of the track. That's how greasy it was over there. 2 drivers losing it. Sure, they must be teenagers, they must be in their first ever F2 races, whatever. But still, it's a possibility. Let's not forget we have 5.5 rookies racing tomorrow. And if it is indeed wet, and if we are racing at a street circuit which will get dirty and greasy, I'm not too optimistic about us having a clean race completely. I do think that we will need to prepare for a red flag, which is why my commentary notes are going to get suddenly 10 times thicker, because we need to read more about the regulations. We need to read more about the past records of each driver's history in the wet, and who's good and who's not, the iconic races and everything like that. I think I'm lining up a very fun evening of research, and I'd love to share all of that with you. And in terms of that as well, Kunal, I think it's going to be fun for all of us, because every single time Formula One races in the wet, we see the grid order get mixed up completely. And it all then comes down to the driver who has the best possible day. And on that day in Brazil in 2024, Alpine, who were second last, ended up jumping from P9 to P6. So for all you know, Liam Lawson could well come back from P18 and get back towards a decent point scoring position. We just don't know how good he is in the wet. Oh, actually,
We
isn't he very good in the wet? Zandvoort 2023, when Ricardo injured his hand, I think he delivered a very good race over there, the last I remember.
That's true, and Liam himself said, "I need a bit of rain to move forward." Frankly, rain is always a great equalizer, and it's anyway a fairly equal grid that we've got. So to have it equalize that much more with the rain, these cars and haven't, even though they are the iterations of last year's cars, haven't been driven on wet weather circuits or wet conditions. So that's going to be a learning for the teams as well. And as Lando Norris put it, that the rules are converging, performance is converging, everyone's literally hitting performance limits, the ceiling of the performance limits as well. So rain putting a spanner in all of those plans will be pretty fantastic. And it's going to be a very early morning for me in Oslo, but all up
How
for it,
early?
Somil.
How
I don't
early?
even remember. Yeah, I think 6 a.m. No, 5 a.m. start. And
5
then
a.m.
there's Formula 2 before that. So I'm pretty much pulling off an all nighter. But
You need some Red Bull. You surely need some Red Bull.
I can't remember the last time I had a Red Bull, but okay.
It's weird. Now we need to support Red Bull a little bit more. They've been very kind with us, Red Bull India, that is, in terms of all the fun stuff that we're doing. And that does not mean that we are Red Bull Racing fans. We just have a soft corner for the brand in our heart. But we do
Are
have
you
a
not
soft
a Red Bull
corner.
Racing fan for all the awesome work they do in Formula One, in promotions with Max Verstappen, junior drivers,
You
and all
know,
the they have won across three different rule sets,
yeah,
which is more than what Ferrari's managed, more than what Mercedes has managed in the last 20 years. They won with Vettel in the exhaust blown diffuser V10 era that we had. They won in 2021, which was the previous rule set just before this. They won in 2022, 3, and 4. I think they're doing fantastic stuff. And one last comment, which has come from Uttara. I hope Lando does not do his rain dance, Sochi 2021. My feeling is that he's learned his lesson and several more since that day. But that's actually a great point because McLaren's biggest challenge has been on the pit wall, as we
yeah,
remember.
yeah,
How will their pit wall react when it comes to strategy, not just with playing up, two drivers against, because there's two drivers in McLaren versus one in Red Bull, which is Verstappen, which is versus one in George Russell, which is Mercedes. Then there comes Yuki Tsunoda. So Max's wingman, whether Red Bull like it or not, could well be Yuki Tsunoda for
yeah,
tomorrow's race. And then it's far back the the Ferrari is the other team with two drivers in the top 10. The reason why I'm saying this is McLaren will be challenged either way. It's two drivers, you handle their emotions and their aspirations versus the other rivals. And then if there are mixed conditions, they
yeah.
will be challenged that much more. But I'd love to see how Oscar Piastri handles his ambitions, winning at home. It's been a long time since an Australian driver's done that. Long time since an Australian driver's even been on the podium at Melbourne. So lots to look forward to in the race tomorrow, starting also with your Hindi commentary on fan code, Somil.
Yes, indeed. That's gonna happen at 10:30 in the morning India time. So get fan code. You'll be able to hear myself and Chetan Narula live in Hindi for the first time. Not for the first time, but yeah, but for the first time for a full season. So it'll be phenomenal, and the prep is ongoing. I do want to take a couple of more questions though, because you guys have been so energetic, and it's lovely to be chatting Formula One with you. Normally, we're just recording on our own. Kunal, F1 Stats Guru, and myself. We're just chatting, discussing our thoughts, opinions, and it's amazing to have your thoughts and your comments in the middle of it as well. So we should do this more often. Max is saying that it's weird to watch Formula One in the daylight. I see you're from New Zealand, mate. You have it easy for one race, and then the torture begins for you later on. But I still respect for watching Formula One so consistently after that. El Vlad has come up with a comment. Will McLaren winning this race be the end of a potential title fight for the rest of the season? I think this is the note we need to end on because we also need to get back to other stuff. And we will be back with more tomorrow. But I don't think it's going to be the end. Is it, Kunal? 24 races is a long time. And Melbourne is just one type of a circuit. We're yet to go to Monaco, which is the exact opposite. We're yet to go to Mexico City, which is a different challenge in itself. We're yet to go to Interlagos, which is so different. And we're also yet to go to other places like the Red Bull Ring, which is a completely different ball game. So I think we're just beginning. There are places where I feel other teams will be better, and yes, mid-season upgrades will come, but I think it's too early, no?
Oh, yeah, yeah. 24 race season is way too early. If anything, all the McLaren fans would remember that because it was after they brought that upgrade in Miami last year, 5 or 6 races in, that they actually had a competitive season as well. So, all in all, I would say it's too early to call anything in Spain. Not in Spain, sorry. That's a comment from Max. All in
Yeah,
all, too early to call anything in for 2025. If anything, we should just hope that we're going to have more live streams where nobody has a clue. Oscar Piastri said, we guys don't have a clue what happened to Ferrari. So I don't imagine any of you guys have a clue as well. But I would just say that to write off any team or driver so early in the season, not the best thing to do. There are lots of changes that could happen, that will happen as the season goes. To average out, I would say the first 3 or 4, or in fact even 5 races, would give a better general sense of the pecking order because each circuit is different conditions, and then that tells you, okay, this is an all-round package versus this is a circuit specific, front limited, rear
yeah,
limited, whatever those technical terms come. And like Max is saying, who's been very active on track and in the comments as well, flexi wings also will come into effect from the
correct.
Spanish Grand Prix as well. So lots of reasons why 2025 should be all the way down till Abu Dhabi, the interest levels and the viewership as well.
Exactly. Okay, one last question to each of us to end. What's the one thing you're looking forward to the most from tomorrow's race?
How the McLarens are going to battle up front, because if they are saying they're allowed to race, okay, they have limitations in their package, much as everyone else does as well. But they also know that winning the first race of the season is actually the best way to announce yourself to the world,
Yeah.
and more importantly, your team.
For me, that one thing is going to be Ferrari and to see just how good they are going to be in the long runs. That's if the race is dry. If the race is wet, I'm actually more keen to see the rookies and just how good they are. Because I've been hearing lots of good things about Kimi Antonelli and him having so much control over a race car. Again, in the wet, we'll find out. I've been hearing great things about a lot of rookies. We'll see if Isaac Hadjar is actually that temperamental as the world makes him out to be. We'll see if Yuki Tsunoda has actually gained that extra bit of control that you need to have to be the second driver at Red Bull. We'll find out if Liam Lawson is as mentally tough as Helmut Marko makes him to be. There's lots of interesting stories to watch for in the Australian GP. And just quickly, strategic point of view, mostly two stopper if it's dry, unless something crazy happens, or if it's the wet, forget about it. Just enjoy the race for what it is because it's going to be crazy.
If
But
it's wet, my money is on Max Verstappen.
same. Like you can't even bet against him. Like I would have said Lewis otherwise also, but then again, he's not that comfy with the car. It's his first time in Ferrari. Track position is a thing. It's going to be interesting. Let us know who you think is going to win down in the comments. Next time, we'll definitely will take out more time to react. But today, I think I need to go have lunch. You need to go have breakfast, Kunal. And then after that, we need to prepare for our individual broadcasts and see all the crazy things that are going to happen. But thank you for watching and thank you for joining us on this journey. 3 hours after the race tomorrow, we will be back with an episode. We're just yet to decide if we go live or if we are recording something, but we do want to go and have a fun post race debrief with all of you folks. So, subscribe to the Inside Line F1 podcast. Stay tuned. If we won't go live, at least we'll come out with some really fun content. And make sure you are also interacting with us on social media. Uttara is doing a lovely job managing it, and she will be receiving all of your questions, which we should then answer on the main show as well. So, stay tuned, folks. We'll be back. Bye bye. Fuck, what an engaged audience, yaar.